players caught AAAs using AI. Now Steam picked a side. Is this about Call of Duty? I think this is about Call of Duty.
Okay, everyone, today's story is actually pretty damn big. So here's what's going on, right?
Also, Subnautica 2, apparently.
Players are getting refunds for Call of Duty this year, and it's not because of the absurd campaign or some sort of matchmaking disaster.
Oh, it definitely is part of it.
No, they are demanding their money back because they're finding the game is filled with AI-generated art that was never mentioned in the marketing.
Wow.
What matters there is they're actually
I'm pretty sure they can't do that.
getting the refunds. But it's not just Call of Duty, because Ubisoft is also under fire. And that's because while we're
that Anno game that I said was going to be a fucking disaster.
talking about AI slop, right? The real problem isn't necessarily the output. It isn't necessarily the intents that people say. Really, we should start looking at what people actually do, and we should look at the process. Because in reality, it's the management of these companies that are getting just as sloppy as the games. Alright, so this year's Call of Duty is once again full of generative AI slop. Because whenever I think Call of Duty, I think of piss, filter, poisoned, Ghibli-adjacent fantasy art of some...
Eventually, it's going to get so bad, and we're going to have so many alternatives, so many much better alternatives, that people are just going to stop getting these games. They're going to stop getting Call of Duty and things. Because what's the point?
Presence impressing a guard by catching a catfish. Yeah.
Like, there's going to be so much stuff out there that there literally won't be a reason to buy any of the slop games. Because you're not going to have time. And it's just going to be a waste of money. What are they going to do? They're going to actually have to make better games.
That's Call of Duty, all right. And the images you're seeing right now are basically those of calling cards. They're floating around social media in the wake of the Black Ops 7 launch, because people have looked at them and thought, oh my god, what the hell is this? It's weird, tonally mismatched stuff that bears all the hallmarks of cheaply produced and barely reviewed generated art. And look, this...
Yeah, some of this is, like, definitely AI. Like this one right here. Definitely. This right here, like, what is this? What's going on in this picture? I don't, and like this right here, what is going on in these pictures? This one's obviously AI, like, what the hell? It looks like it's supposed to be snacks.
This isn't some blind see AI get really angry thing. No.
Holy shit.
Sure,
it's so bad. I saw these.
People could probably do this stuff tastefully. What actually matters is this is a huge set of games where it's not being done tastefully, and that's actually happening at scale. Now, the funny thing about this with Call of Duty is that after the mess of Black Ops 6, audiences kind of expected this stuff, right? We all expected the generic Steam AI disclosure thing. We all expected Activision responding to the news outlets, confirming something that they didn't do anything wrong.
It's gonna get worse, by the way. I fucking told you so. I told you so that, these AAA game companies are going to get sloppy as fuck, cut as many corners as possible. The people who work for these companies, like Activision and, like, Halo Studios, they don't care about making video games. They're not passionate about making video games. Or they're not passionate about making good video games. They're passionate about being part of projects, I guess. But they don't care about the games they're making. They're just working a job, making money.
Wrong and denying anything that they could have done wrong. And the reason why is actually because we've already had all of this happen this very year. It all went down back in August, where Associate Creative Director Miles Leslie told IGN that everything Gen AI that people saw in Black Ops 6 was there, quote, by accident. And
dude, the next Halo, what is it? Campaign Evolved, gonna be so bad. I'm already calling it now. I could tell that they were using AI all over the place.
That was never the intention.
And it's going to be much worse than anybody could ever imagine.
And the claim that he makes is that these are basically just tools to help artists, but that the outputs are never to make it in-game. So that would mean that, say, our many-fingered zombie Santa friend was only meant to be a placeholder, never should have shipped. You know, just a placeholder asset meant to sit there and reflect the vibe that the artists wanted, until eventually a human could come in and replace it. Now, look, I'm happy enough to steelman this guy's position, and I'm all for artists having better tools and less drudgery in their job. But this keeps on happening, and I think that means...
And it's getting worse, and it's gonna keep getting worse, Especially the worse the sentiment is, and the more people refund, the more they're going to do it.
We should be quite a bit more suspicious. So when I said it keeps happening, obviously that's right for Call of Duty, but it's also an industry-wide thing. First, there's a game that I should love, and that's Anno 1117 Pax Romana. It should be a bright spot in Ubisoft's calendar, but there are problems with the game.
Just a little tidbit here. Alyssa Mercante was flown out to Europe for a $30,000 party by the devs of Anno 117 Pax Romana. Why? What was the point of that?
Sadly, there's an unfinished campaign, some odd art decisions, and for today's purposes, an AI art problem. You see, Anno's art tends to be gorgeous, right? And that's why seeing it replaced with a thoughtless imitation with no experiential humanity behind it is a big nope for me. That's the type of art where, even if it was to look pretty, it just wouldn't evoke a feeling in me. So here's actually what went down with this.
There's a certain way that games that are, handcrafted are. Especially if they're hand-painted. It's even deeper when a game is hand-painted. And of course, AI is just going to feel way more boring. Because it's even less human.
Something in these loading screens caught people's eye. Basically, something was up.
Yeah, and once you see it, you can't unsee it, and you start seeing it in everything.
They were off-putting. We saw these renderings of somewhat human-shaped shadow figures. And no, this is not a Ghost Adventures episode, just random-ass shadow figures. Now that led to people then checking for the Steam AI disclosure. The disclosure was there, and of course it's a first for the Anno series. Now, I want you to remember that this is all happening at the same time that Ubisoft are catching some flack for allegedly machine translating the German language options for the game. So yeah, the Germans aren't pleased, and I suspect that also extends to the official Germans, by which I mean the government. I say that because the German government awarded Ubisoft a 5.7 million euro cultural development grant in 2023. So they...
Yeah, well, what'd they do with that?
Probably won't like the look of this weird slop job with the damn German translation. Now, admittedly, that grant's likely because the game's development team is a large German employer, and that would mean that the government would want to back them. But hey, if you're a French publisher making a historical strategy game, do I really
damn French
have to
every
say
time?
Don't piss off the Germans. Come on, it keeps on going badly when we do that. But jokes aside, it is a bad look on both counts, and that is why Ubisoft did actually respond to things. So according to them, the offending scenes were just generative AI placeholders that slipped through review. They just...
How about that? No, probably more like they ran out of time and they had to push it forward.
Slipped in, but thankfully that now they are being fixed. But when you actually look at the fixes, you see they're not done in a way that would inspire hope, because they're just touching up the offending mistakes with what's there, rather than replacing it fully, which I think suggests that whenever push comes to shove, yeah, they actually are happy to just do the quick, dirty thing and cut some corners.
Yep.
Can't imagine any of us find that.
Yeah, it's going to save them some time and some money, and if they have the time and money to go back and change it later, they will, and they never do. They never have the time and money later, so they never cut it out.
Particularly surprising. But what's maybe more surprising is just how sloppy they're getting, how far the standards are falling. So look, it's not necessarily the technology itself that is turning people's stomachs. It can also be the use of that technology, and in this case, the sheer sloppiness, the lack of care. Now, we've heard the placeholder excuse multiple times this year. Hell, even Expedition 33, yes, that game, even it fell foul of it. Basically, there was an in-game poster that was found, turned out to be a placeholder, and it was replaced a week after launch. I suppose it's the more innocuous of today's three main examples.
Man, yeah, you got to get that AI slop out of there. I don't even care if they're using AI for, like, tools and stuff, as long as it doesn't look like AI.
But here's basically what happens. Devs use generative AI tools to create a almost production-ready asset. They then populate the game. They put those assets in, and you know what? Because they've used the quickly made AI placeholder thing...
Well, now the game's done, and it's time to ship it. So, well, it looks like it's done. Let's ship it.
Actually, when the placeholders are in, they probably do get a bunch of the vibe that they're looking for. But then what happens is, there's a release date for the game. There is a rush to ship. and that can mean that those assets may never get replaced. So you can see why they do it. You can even see some benefits over the traditional style of placeholder, which was meant to be so egregious and obvious that you really
And they got more time and more money to bloat the rest of the game.
just couldn't.
You got to pet the dog. You got to make the pebbles look good. You got to be able to have an ant life cycle.
Ship them. You know, just a blank texture saying delete me or something. That would mean that people would notice the placeholder is there and it wouldn't get shipped.
What the fuck is wrong with Rumble, dude? I wasn't having problems with YouTube.
And sometimes, yeah, a mistake would happen. Something would slip in. Maybe a wrong build is uploaded or human error happens. Now that
But I can't just stream my show on YouTube. I might have to switch to Kick if the speeds don't get better.
happens even without Gen AI built placeholders. But when the placeholders, if you were to sort of squint your eye and look at them, almost look like the finished product, then it's a lot harder to get that part of the process right. And look, not everyone hates Gen AI on principle. That's a totally fine thing to think, by the way. I mean, if people...
Yeah, I don't give a shit. But if you're gonna release slop, then I'm not gonna play your game. I mean, it's pretty much as simple as that. And people want to say like, oh, well, you're getting mad at something you're not even gonna play. Like, I'm not getting mad for one. I'm just being over the top and excited and playing kind of a character, but a real version of myself that thinks that this shit sucks.
broadly did, we wouldn't be praising Game of the Year nominee Expedition
Oh, that guy's badass. I like those glasses. I have some of those glasses somewhere.
33, which did decide to use that stuff as a part of
If you couldn't tell, I am part French.
its pipeline, right? Not intended to be final results, but as a part of its pipeline. So here's the thing, right? Plenty of people will tell you that if you hate Gen AI, that's okay. Just don't buy those games. Right, easy enough. There's tons of options out there. And sure, audiences do have different standards. We actually saw that recently with Arc Raiders, where some people drew their personal line there, others didn't, and that is completely okay. Almost all things are actually a spectrum of belief. This isn't some...
It seemed really cool, but Arc Raiders is just not the type of game that I'm into. I'm not really into online games. I like online single-player games, you know? Games that I can play by myself online.
Binary AI good, AI bad thing. But what I would say is that when the product itself becomes messy, or the company doesn't seem to care, or appears to be disrespectful of player time, well then it is so much easier to shift a player's position on that spectrum. And that's why
Alright, Rumble, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I was not having this problem earlier. Like, there's no way my internet is this bad. Let me turn my phone internet off. It's bullshit that this is affecting me now that I started my new show. It wasn't affecting me until the other day. I started doing this. Holy shit. Just fucking work. All right.
even if they do want to use these tools, the industry has got to hold themselves to a higher standard. Because whenever the generative AI placeholder art isn't replaced, and is just tidied or updated, it's actually kind of clear that functionally, those ended up not being placeholders. They actually were just a cut corner that the company got away with. And pretending otherwise, I think, is what's actually frustrating people here. Thus far, we've covered a big reason why people are frustrated, but I'd actually wager it goes far, far, far deeper than that. So let's dive in.
Either be honest or stop being so sloppy.
Some people are fine with Gen AI whenever it is intentional or feels thoughtful. Now, you may remember the
Or, you know, if they're not making slop.
Screen Actors Guild voice actor strike. Just before that came to an end, Epic Games unveiled a chatbot-powered Darth Vader NPC for Fortnite.
Oh, dude, I remember that. It was such a disaster.
Epic used James Earl Jones's voice with his family's blessing, and then they ran it through an LLM trained on scraped internet text, which is why we could have Darth Vader reciting the story of Kingdom Hearts to us.
Very well, Sky. But I will not stop until I get to 200 sentences. The tale begins on the Destiny Islands, where young Sora and his friends...
And people were tricking him to say gamer words. It didn't take long. I don't know who thought this was going to go well, but, like, they apparently have never spent any time online, because people will find a way to break your shit.
Riku and Kairi dream of exploring new worlds beyond their idyllic home.
Bit of a strange thing. Maybe just like how Anno could approximate some Roman art, or Call of Duty could try to ape the Ghibli style, and people were mostly fine with it for Fortnite. But from what I can tell, with COD and Anno,
Yeah, Fortnite is kind of just supposed to be streamer slop. Those other games are kind of supposed to be hardcore games, like Call of Duty. Well, I guess not anymore. It used to be a hardcore game, but now it's, you know, it's kind of a casual.
it has hit people completely differently, and I think that's what gets us to the heart of this issue. What's different then? Well, I would say Vader was intentional as a product experience. That sounds very buzzwordish, but what I mean is, it was a toy in a live service game like Fortnite. It was dropped, people did unhinged things for the first little while, they found the limits, stuff was patched up, but basically that was kind of the point.
Nah, it wasn't just patched up. They got rid of it.
Goofy Vader was the sell, and they had permission from all of the major people involved. To be honest, the easiest way I can put this is, it was honest about being a form of throwaway funny slop. And I think that meant that people weren't as outraged, especially because of the permissions. Now, with that in mind,
And also, Fortnite is kind of a streamer slop game.
no wonder more people could gel with something
Like,
like
you can have streamer slop stuff in a game like Fortnite. It doesn't make sense in a game like Call of Duty.
that than, say, the abominable new Coca-Cola ads. Because, yeah, Fortnite Vader is a pale imitation,
I don't drink Coca-Cola, so that means nothing to me.
but it's a silly little toy, and that was kind of the point. What Coke
It does look fucking terrible, though.
were doing with the recent advert that's pissed people off, well, that's just a cheap imitation of a real thing that we actually had, where its levels of glitz and glam and detail and lighting are so over the top that it doesn't feel real anymore. That's a huge part of why it comes off uncanny. It makes it seem like the creatives involved are working for the tool, rather than the tool working for them. And
That pretty much is what they're doing. They're doing all of this stuff in hopes that it gets better in the future.
where COD and Anno are vital to today's.
It's like we're at the point of, like, way back when we were first getting computer generated graphics. We're like at the beginning of that with AI, with the companies, and they just won't stop using the CG slop. But this time it's AI instead of CG, even though it's kind of the same thing.
Story, because these, in my view, aren't really placeholders. I gotta say, allegedly in my opinion, but you may have heard the term,
It's kind of like how when we went from VHS to DVD, DVDs were technically higher quality, but they were also worse because they wouldn't last as long. They would break easy. If you got a scratch on it, it was fucked. With a tape, it was a fucking tape, dude. It was a big ass piece of plastic that you could drop on the floor, it'd be fine. Just don't mess up the tape inside.
purpose of the system is what it does, which does strip away some of the intent and focuses a little bit more on the end product, which here is useful because that's the bloody thing we buy. Because those assets are still in there, even though, when you look at them, they are clearly out-of-place things that feel cheap. They are just, especially in, say, Call of Duty.
And it's just kind of death by 1,000 cuts. Because it's just one more problem the new Call of Duty has that people don't like.
Stuff. Slop. Almost
The whole thing, the whole game seems like slop. And a lot of people are just saying that Black Ops 7 is just Black Ops 6, but with new stuff in it.
the definition of slop. And it's clear the management of these studios don't care enough to pay for real art in the first place. Or maybe thought they could just cut some corners. And then, whenever it came time to ship their game, they didn't care to make what they had better.
Yeah, they didn't want to pay artists for these, you know, what are these? Calling cards. They didn't want to just pay artists. If I was making a game like Call of Duty, I would want to pay artists to have actual, like, real world artists doing stuff for my game. Just out of principle, out of thinking that's fucking cool.
Sure, whatever. Just do some Ghibli slop. Let's not think about whether that does or does not fit Call of Duty. Let's not think about making an amazing user experience. Let's just shit out something that people will recognize and hope that'll do the job. But as if that's not bad enough, I actually think it's a lot more chilling. I think maybe plenty of people here do actually care, but the system that they're in has no room for their caring.
Yep, that's what I was saying. They're just doing their job. Some people probably want to do better, but they can't because of the rules of the rules of their job.
Because they got to do what they got to do. And if you ask me, that's what's actually
And they can't just not do it because they'd get fired.
scary here.
And then there goes their cool job at Activision, dream job.
We've got some of this tech that may end up being genuinely transformative. It seems we're on the cusp of major medical, road safety, knowledge work, and a whole bunch of other improvements. That's the thing, the technology is just a tool. What matters is how we choose to use that tool. And
True.
I fear that what could be great...
I use AI for my shit all the time. I don't, like, use AI to... I mean, okay. So, for certain things with things that I do, like, I don't use AI at all for my music. But for, like, thumbnails and stuff, for the thumbnail for this live stream, the background was AI. I used AI to remove the background from my original photo so I could put my PNG over the new background. That's what I use AI for. And then I put filters over it and, like, break it a little bit to make it more human.
Progress, and maybe in its best way could mean more artist tools to make their jobs better, to help them be more creative.
Like all of the in between, like the cutaway cards that I use, most of those were generated with AI and then put through a pixel filter that I've made.
I fear that that positive vision will be corrupted by systems of influence that can only see the next cost saving, even most chillingly, in spite of how everyone involved feels. Because at the end of the day, everyone's just turning up, doing their job, under whatever systems they're under. Maybe that's the thing we should really start thinking about here. You know, rather than getting needlessly angry at each other.
Yeah, I think going forward, a lot now, more than ever, and I think it's going to get worse. You better make good stuff. Or stuff that's fun, at least. Because if you don't, then people aren't going to pay for it. And then you're going to be out of the job. And even at these giant corporations, you're going to see a lot of them start crumbling, and you already are, with like Ubisoft and like EA, Naughty Dog. They're starting to crumble. What do they got going? What do they got coming? They got Interstellar, and that's seeming like it's going to be a fucking disaster, dude. A bunch of these companies, they just got nothing coming.